happily decided to stop working, and I think it's still deciding to not work. Unstable. Good. Okay, it does work. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just not seeing it. Okay, it's back to saying that is excellent for some reason. Okay. Let us read. Okay. Yeah. We're back. My internet just decided to nope out. So, here we are. We are, to reminder to everyone, we are reading Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. Just Google the title and you should find the page of which I'm on. We are on Chapter 0. Just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Feel free to read along or just listen if you're feeling comfortable with that. Okay. I was scared for a moment that it wasn't working. You've just done in 2 hours what it takes the three of us 2 days to do. My college roommate was working at a retail electronics stores in the early 2000s. Occasionally, the store would receive a spreadsheet of thousands of product prices from other stores. A team of 3 employees would print the spreadsheet into thick stacks of paper and split it up amongst themselves. For each product price, they would look up the store's price and note all the products that their competitors sold for less. It usually took a couple of days. You know, I could write a program to do that, and if you have the original file for the printouts, my roommate told him. Then, when he saw him sitting on the floor with papers scattered and stacked all around him. After a couple of hours, he had a short program that read a competitor's price from the file. Hello, I got a beep. Thank you, Caramel 22, for joining us in our beautiful world of learning. In this case, we're reading. Well, you've seen it. I said the title multiple times. Starting from where we left off. After a couple of hours, he had a short program that read a competitor's price from a file, found the product in the store's database. It noted whether the competitor was cheaper. He was still new to programming, so he spent most of his time looking up documentation in a programming book. The actual program only took a few seconds to run. My roommate and his coworkers took an extra long lunch that day. This is the power of computer programming. A computer is like a Swiss Army knife that you can configure for countless tasks. Many people spend hours clicking and typing to perform repetitive tasks, unaware that the machine that they're using could do their job in seconds if they gave it the right instructions. Whom is this book for? Software is at the core of so many of the tools we use today. Nearly everyone uses social networks to communicate. Many people have internet-connected computers in their phones. Most office jobs involve interacting with a computer to get work done. As a result, the demand for people who can code has skyrocketed. Countless books, interactive web tutorials, and developer boot camps can promise to turn ambitious beginners into software engineers with six-figure salaries. This book is not for those people. It's for everyone else. On its own, this book won't turn you into a professional software developer any more than a few guitar lessons will turn you into a rock star. But if you're an office worker, administrator, academic, or anyone else who uses a computer for work or fun, you will learn the basics of programming so that you may automate simpler tasks such as these, moving and renaming thousands of files and sorting them into folders. filling out online forms, no typing required, downloading files or copying text from a website whenever it updates, having your computer text you custom notifications. This happens to be what I'm interested in. Checking the chat, making sure everyone is happy. Updating or formatting Excel spreadsheets, checking your email, and sending out pre-written responses. These tasks are simple but time-consuming for humans, and they're often so trivial. Whoa! Thank you, Glimgam. You gave me some cash. Thanks. Back to the book. These tasks are simple but time-consuming for humans, and they're often so trivial or specific that there's no ready-made software to perform them. Armed with a little bit of programming knowledge, however, you can have your computer do these tasks for you. Conventions. This book is not designed as a reference manual. It is a guide for beginners. The coding style sometimes goes against best practices. For example, some programs use global variables, but that's a trade-off to make the code simpler to learn. This book is made for people to write throwaway code, so there's not much time spent on style and elegance. Sophisticated programming concepts, like object-oriented programming, list comprehensions, and generators, aren't covered because of their complexity and the complexity they add. Veteran programmers may point out ways the code in this book could be changed to improve its efficiency. But this book is mostly concerned with getting programs to work with the least amount of effort on your part. What is programming? Moving on to the next section. Oh, howdy, Glenn. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Glenn. However, onward. What is programming? Television shows and films often show programmers fearlessly typing cryptic streams of ones and zeros on glowing screens. But modern programming isn't that mysterious. Programming is simply the act of entering instructions for the computer to perform. These instructions might crunch some numbers, modify text, look up information in files, or communicate with other computers over the internet. All programs use the basic instructions as building blocks. Here are the most common ones in English. Do this, then that. If this condition is true, perform this action. Otherwise, do that action. Do this action exactly 27 times. Keep doing that until this condition is true. You can combine these simple building blocks to implement more intricate decisions too. For example, here's the programming instructions called the source code for a simple program written in Python programming language. In the Python programming language, starting at the top, the Python runs every line of code. Some lines are run only if a certain condition is true, or else Python runs some other line until it reaches the bottom. 1. Password file equal open secret password file dot text. Secret password equal secret password file dot read. Print, enter your password. Typed password equal input. If typed password equals secret password, print access granted. If typed password equal 12345, print that password is the one an idiot puts on their luggage. Else, access denied. You may not know anything about programming, but you could probably make a reasonable guess of what the previous code does just by reading it. First, the file secretpassword.txt is opened. And then the secret password in it is read. Then the user is prompted to input a password from the keyboard. These two passwords are compared. If they're the same, a program prints access granted to the screen. Next, the program checks to see if the password is 12345 and hints that this choice might not be the best password. If the passwords are not the same, the password prints access denied to the screen. What is Python? Python is a programming language with syntax rules for writing, which is considered valid Python code, and the Python interpreter software that reads source code written in the Python language and performs its instructions. You can download the Python interpreter for free at this link, and there are other versions for Linux, macOS, and Windows. The name Python comes from the surreal British comedy group Monty Python, not from the snake. Python programmers are affectionately called Pythonists. Both Monty Python and Serpentine Reference usually prefer Python's tutorials and documentation. So that's a neat fun fact. I didn't know that. I didn't know that about Python. Programmers don't need to know much math. It's a common anxiety I hear about learning programming. Learning to program is the notion that it requires a lot of math. Actually, most programming doesn't require math beyond basic arithmetic. Yawn. In fact, being good at programming isn't that different from being good at solving Sudoku puzzles. To solve a Sudoku puzzle, the numbers 1 through 9 must be filled in each row, each column, and each 3x3 interior square of the full 9x9 board. Some numbers are provided to give you a start, and you find a solution by making deductions based off these numbers. In a puzzle showed in figure 0 and 1, since 5 appears in the first and second rows, it cannot show up in these rows again. Therefore, in the upper right grid, it must be in the third row, since the last column also has a 5 in it, and the 5 cannot go in the right of the 6, then it must go left of the 6. Solving one row, one column, or square will provide more clues to the rest of the puzzle. As you fill in one group of numbers, 1 through 9, and then another, you'll soon solve the entire grid. Just because Sudoku involves numbers doesn't mean you have to be good at math to figure out the solution. The same is true with programming. Like solving a Sudoku puzzle, writing programs involves breaking down a problem into individualized, detailed steps. Similarly, when debugging programs, that is, finding and fixing errors, you patiently observe the program, what the program is doing, and find the cause of the bugs. And like all skills, the more you program, the more you will become. The second most common anxiety I hear about I forgot to read the title. Checking. Hopefully you, all of whom are watching currently or later, are enjoying themselves. I'll probably edit this down into a more comprehensible version at a later date. But for now, we are working with this. You are not too old to learn to program. The second most common anxiety I hear about learning to program is that people think they're too old to learn it. I've read many internet comments from folk who think they're too old. I have read many internet comments from folks who think it's too late for them because they're already gasp 23 years old. This is clearly not too old to learn to program. many people learn much later in life. You don't need to have started as a child to become a capable programmer. But this image of programmers of whiz kids is a persistent one. Unfortunately, I contribute to this myth, and I tell others I was in grade school when I started programming. However, programming is much easier to learn today than it was in the 1990s. Today, there are more books, better search engines, and many more online question and answer websites. On top of that, the programming languages themselves are far more user-friendly. For these reasons, everything I learned about programming in the years between grade school and high school could be learned today in about a dozen weekends. My head start wasn't really that much of a head start. It's important to have a growth mindset about programming. In other words, understand that people develop programming skills through practice. They are not just born programmers, and being unskilled at programming now is not an indication that you'll never become an expert. Reading. I'm trying my best not to skip over words, and hopefully, excuse me. Hopefully, that isn't an issue. Programming is a creative activity. Programming is a creative task, like painting, writing, knitting, or constructing Lego castles. Like painting a blank canvas, making software has many constraints, but endless possibilities. The difference between programming and other creative activities is that when you're programming, you have all the raw materials you need in your computer. You don't need to buy any additional canvas, paint, film, yarn, Lego bricks, or electronic components. A decade-old computer is more than powerful enough to write programs. Once your program is written, it can be copied perfectly an infinite amount of times. A knit sweater can only be worn by one person at a time, but a useful program can easily be shared online with the entire world. Now, as a fiber person myself, more than one person can wear a sweater at the same time if those who are working on it have planned to make it such. And I am insulted that it is implied that only one person can wear an epic sweater at the same time. It's like a hug, but with not only the person of whom you're sharing the sweater with, but with the yarn itself. Truly, it's great. About this book. The first part of this book covers the basic Python programming concepts, and the second part covers various tasks you can have your computer automate. Each chapter in the second part has project programs for you to study. Here's a brief rundown of what you'll find in each chapter. Excuse me. Part 1. Python Programming Basics. Chapter 1. Python Basics. Covers expressions, the most basic type of Python instruction, and how to use Python interactive shell software to experiment with code. I got it open. I got the shell open. I got added somewhere. I have been added. Give me a moment. Checking. Hello. What is the point of wearing a sweater if you ain't got a homie to share it with? Exactly, Glenn. Exactly. Why create the best sweater you possibly could if you cannot get your partner, friend, or wretched enemy to wear it with you? Back to back, chest to chest, even side to side. The potential and orientations are unlimited in the wonderful world of yarn. I would be crocheting right now, however, my brain has already been occupied by being presentable to human beings. Therefore, if anything else happens, I will start beeping. Like a rogue Game Boy. Chapter 2. Flow Control. What I can't do when I'm on my jokes. Explains how to make programs decide which instructions to execute so your code can intelligently respond to different conditions. Chapter 3. Functions. What I can't do. We like to have fun here. I may sound like Siri. Reading, automate the not fun things. I already am. Chapter 3. Functions. Instructs you on how to define your own functions so that you can organize your code into more manageable chunks. Chapter 4. Lists. Introduces the list data type and explains how to organize data. Chapter 5. Dictionaries and structuring data. Introduction to the dictionary data type and shows you more powerful ways to organize data. Chapter 6. Manipulating strings. Covers working with text data called strings in Python. Part 2. Automating tasks. Chapter 7. Pattern matching with regular expressions. Covers how Python can manipulate strings and search for text patterns with regular expressions. Chapter 8. Input validation. Explains how your program can verify the instruction a user gives it, ensuring that the user's data arrives in a format that won't cause errors for the rest of the program. Chapter 9. Reading and writing files. Explains how your program can read context of text files and save information to files on your hard drive. Chapter 10. Organizing files. Shows how Python can copy, move, rename, and delete large numbers of files much faster than a human user can. Also explains compressing and decompressing files. Chapter 11. Debugging. Shows how to use Python's various bug finding and bug fixing tools. Chapter 12. Web scraping. Shows you how to write programs that can automatically download web pages and parse them for information. This is called web scraping. Chapter 13. Working with Excel work spreadsheets. Covers programmatically manipulating Excel spreadsheets so that you don't have to read them. This is helpful when the number of documents you have to analyze is in the hundreds or thousands. Working with Google Sheets. Covers how to read and update Google Sheets, a popular web-based spreadsheet application using Python. Chapter 15. Working with PDF and Word documents. Covers programmatically reading Word and PDF documents. Working with CSV files and JSON data. Continues to explain how to programmatically manipulate documents. Now discussing CSV and JSON files. Chapter 17, Keeping Time, Scheduling Tasks, and Launching Programs. Explains how Python programs handle time and dates, and how to schedule your computer to perform a task at certain times. Also shows you how your Python programs can launch non-Python programs. Chapter 18, Sending Emails and Text Messages. Explains how to write programs that can send emails and text messages on your behalf. Chapter 19, Manipulating Images. How to programmatically manipulate images such as JPEG or PNG files. Chapter 20, Controlling the Keyboard and Mouse with GUI Automation. Explains how to programmatically control the mouse and keyboard to automatic clicks and key presses. Appendix A, Installing Third-Party Modules. Shows you how to extend Python with useful additional modules. Appendix B, Running Programs. Shows you how to run your Python programs on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux from outside the code editor. Appendix C, Answers to the Practice Questions. Provides answers and some additional context for the practice answers at the end of each chapter. Just checking, I do have a version of Python 3. You can download Python for Windows, Mac OS, and Ubuntu for free at this link. If you download the latest version from the website downloads page, all the programs in this book should work. Warning: be sure to download a version of Python 3, such as 3.80. The programs in this book are written to run on Python 3, and may not run correctly, if at all, on Python 2. I've been added. Breathing. On the download page, you'll find Python installers for 64 and 32-bit computers for each operating system. So figure out which installer you need. If you bought a computer in 2007 or later, it is most likely a 64-bit operating system. Otherwise, you have a 32-bit version. But here's how you find out for sure. On Windows, select Start, Control Panel, System, and check if your system type says 64 or 32-bit. On Mac OS, go to the Apple menu, select About this Mac, More Info, System Report, Hardware, and look at the processor name field. If it says Intel Core Solo or Intel Core Duo, you have a 32-bit machine. If it says anything else, including Intel Core 2 Duo, you have a 24-bit machine. On Ubuntu Linux, open a terminal and run user command uname. A response of I686 means 62-bit, and X86_64 means 64-bit. On Mac, give me a moment to sort my brain. Talking is difficult. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves or at me during this time. we're taking a tad bit of a break because talking is difficult. Give me a moment. Again, this time you won't be able to hear me. I need to inform my father that I am streaming because I have informed no one in my household that I am streaming. Therefore, I do not wish to be disturbed. Where did my cursor go? Okay, my cursor has disappeared. I don't know where it went, and I am a tad bit confused. Where did it go? Where did it come from? There it went. Give me a moment. Please enjoy the music in the meanwhile. And we have returned. Okay. Tad bit of discombobulation. I did take the time to get some grape juice to soothe my voice as I continue to read the basic instructions on how to download Python, of which I have already done. On Windows, download the Python installer. The file name will end with MSI, and double-click it. Follow the instructions the installer displays on the screen to install Python as listed here. Select Install for all users, accept the default option for the next several windows by clicking Next. On Mac OS, let's download the DMG file that is right for your version of the Mac OS, and double-click it. Follow the instructions on the installer displays on the screen to install Python as listed here. When the DMG package opens a new window, double-click the Python npm .pkg file. You may have to enter the administrator password. Accept the default options for the next several windows by clicking Continue, and click Agree to accept the license. On the final window, click Install. If you're running Ubuntu, you can install Python from the terminal by following these steps. Open the terminal window. Enter sudo apt-get install python 3. Enter sudo apt-get install idle 3. Enter sudo apt-get install python pip. Downloading and installing Moo. I don't have this. While the Python interpreter is the software that runs your Python programs, the Moo editor software is where you'll enter your programs. Much the way you would type in a word processor, you can download Moo from this link. Okay. Oh, okay. I am going to get, no! Oh my, no! We're not clicking it there, we're staying on this place. We're copying this link and finagling it a tad bit to make sure that it's right and opening it in the one that you guys can't see. I'm currently in the process of downloading Moo because I didn't know that we need it. Windows installer. There's that. Okay, this is the kind that I need to download. I do need to get the alpha version of Moo. Yes. Moo alpha setup. I agree. And just for me? Sure. And we're extracting. Checking in. Where did the cursor? Where is the cursor cut, Nigel? So how are y'all doing today? Hopefully y'all are enjoying yourselves. We are currently downloading Moo. Feel free to catch up with the other steps of this regimen if you're following along, either live or with the VOD. There should be an edited version. If I get to it, I probably, you know what, I'm not going to say that. Bring in positivity. And hopefully eventual work doneage. Yes, that is the correct way to say what I wanted to express. I have PyCharm installed. I'm gonna assume it's basically the same. It does say later that that moo is specifically used for it required a specific, let me scan. There's the moo icon. It said that you needed a specific version of moo. Therefore, oh yes, you'll need to download moo version 1.10 or later in order to install the third-party modules featured in this book. As of this writing 1.10 is an alpha release and is listed on the download page as a separate link from the main download links. Therefore, I think you need to get moo for this specific regimen. Again, I didn't know that I needed this either. So we can download it together. And moo, done. Oh, this book uses moo as an editor in Interactive Shell. However, you can use any number of editors for writing Python code. The Integrated Development and Learning Environment, IDLE, software installs along with Python and can serve as a second editor if for some reason you can't get moo installed or working. Okay, so you can just use Python's IDLE. On Windows 7 or later, click the start icon in the lower left corner of your screen. Enter IDLE in the search bar and select IDLE Python GUI. On Mac OS, open the Finder window, click Applications, click Python 3.8, and then click the IDLE icon. On Ubuntu, select Applications, Accessories, Terminal, and enter IDLE 3. You may also be able to click Applications at the top of the screen, select Programming, and then click IDLE 3. Okay, let's get moo up, because we're using moo. Moo makes my brain happy. I did have the IDLE open. Yes, standard Python 3. Yes, thank you. Write your code here. Thank you. When you run moo, the window that appears is called the File Editor window. Excuse me. You can open the interactive shell by clicking the Repel button. A shell is a program that lets you type instructions into the computer. Much like the terminal or command prompt on Mac OS and Windows respectively. Python's interactive shell lets you enter instructions for a Python interpreter software to run. The computer reads your instructions, you read and runs them immediately. In moo, the interactive shell is a pane in the lower left with the window with the following text. Repel. Okay. Just checking, and since the test is the same, and it is correct, Jupyter Qt console. In this case, 4.43, Python 3.63, E3632, C5FED8. At my current time. Type copyright, credits, or license for more information. Wait, what's that? Oh, it's exactly the same. Silly me, thinking that it was my current time and date. If you run idle, the interactive shell is the window that first appears. It should be mostly blank except for the text that looks similar to this. Roughly similar to what was above. In one and side are called prompts. The example in this book will use triple greater than prompt for the interactive shell, since it's more common. If you run Python from the terminal or command prompt, they will use the triple greater than prompt as well. In-one prompt was invented by Juniper Notebook, another popular Python editor. For example, enter the following into your interactive shell next to the prompt. Print hello world. So we are going to do our hello world. Close the parentheses. That is in. After that line, press enter and the interactive shell should display this in response. Hello world. Welcome to work and not to fail. Not even sure that this is real. Hello world. Hello Nabo. And yes, through the magical power of reading books. How to find installing third-party modules. Some Python code requires your program to import modules. Some of these modules come with Python, but others are third-party modules created by developers outside of the Python core dev team. Appendix A has detailed instructions on how to use the pip program on Windows or pip3 on Mac, iOS, and Linux to install third-party modules. Consult Appendix A when this book instructs you to install a particular third-party module. How to find help. Programmers tend to learn by searching the internet for answers to their questions. This is quite different from the way many people are accustomed to learning. You're an in-person teacher who lectures and can answer questions, which is great. What's great about using the internet as a schoolroom is that there are whole communities of folk who can answer your questions. Indeed, your questions probably have already been answered, and answers are waiting for you online for you to find them. If you encounter an error message or have trouble making your code work, you won't be the first person to have your problem, and finding a solution is easier than you might think. For example, let's cause an error on purpose. Enter 40 single quote. I'm live. Twitch. Pardon, that was my mother. So that was fun. Let's cause an error on purpose. Enter single quote 42 plus 3 into the interactive shell. You don't need to know what this instruction means right now, but the end result should look like this. Let's see if it does look like that. I don't know why it's wrong, but we will figure it out. Type error, traceback, most recent call, file, PyShell, line 1, in module, error, type error, cannot convert int into string implicitly. Must be, okay, it's must be string, not int. It's very similar. The error message 1. The error message 2 appears because Python could not understand your instruction. The traceback part 1 of your error message is showing the specific instruction and line number that Python had trouble with. If you're not sure what to make of a particular error message, search for it online. Including quotes, type, enter the error that you got into your favorite search engine. You should see tons of links explaining what the error messages mean and what causes it, shown in figures 0 through 2. 02. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Digestion. You will often find that someone else has had the same question as you have. And some other helpful person has already answered. No one person can know everything about programming, so an everyday part of every software engineer's job is looking up answers to technical questions. You don't have to know. You don't have to know what the instruction means right now. Just know that it doesn't send your baking information to us. Please, don't be discouraged. We already know who you are. Asking smart programming questions. If you can't find the answer by searching it online, hide in a hole. That's what I do when I can't answer questions, by searching them online. Oh, wait. Interact with people? No! Why, especially on Reddit? Why would you interact with people? Pardon. Try asking people in a web forum, such as Stack Overflow, or the Learn Programming subreddit. But keep in mind, there are smart ways to ask programming questions that help others help you. To begin, be sure to read the FAQ sections at these websites about the proper way to post questions. I hyperventilates in Reddit. I don't want to go to Reddit. No, don't make me go to Reddit to get help. No! Explain what you are trying to do, not just what you did. This lets your helper know if you're on the wrong track. Specify the point at which the error happens. Does it occur at the very start of your program, or only after you do a certain action? Copy and paste the entire error message in your code to Pastebin or GitHub. These websites make it easy to share large amounts of code with people online without losing any text formatting. You can then put the URL of the posted code in your email or forum post. For example, here are some pieces of code that I've posted. Let's look at them. Sorry, something is missing. Wow! And Explain what you've already tried to do to solve your problem. This tells people you've already put some work into trying to figure things out on your own. List the version you're using. Some key differences between version 2 of Python interpreters and version 3 interpreters. Also say which operating system and version you are running on. If the error came up after you made a change to your code, explain exactly what you changed. Saying that you're able to reproduce. Say whether you're able to reproduce the error every time you run the program, or whenever happens after you perform certain actions. If the latter, explain what those actions are. Always follow good internet etiquette as well. For example, don't post your questions in all caps, or make unreasonable demands of people trying to help you. This is commonly not followed by absolutely anyone. It's just Reddit. Stack Overflow is probably sufficient. Didn't know books had an expiration date now. This was created in 2020. Books probably... Well, with the joys of the ever-expanding world of technology, large sums of text do probably have expiration. I love helping. You can find more information on how to ask programming help in this blog post. In the blog post at Artboard, at this link, you can find a list of frequently asked questions about programming. Ew, gross, Reddit, and a similar list about getting a job in software development at Ew, Reddit. I love helping people decipher Python. I write programming tutorials on my blog at this link, and you can contact me with questions at this email. Although you may get a faster response by posting your questions at Reddit, but slightly less disgusting because it's a very specific Reddit. But probably knowing this book, it is a very large Reddit, so say it with me now. Ew, Reddit. Yeah, I can't wait to open a book I bought and only to find a download code inside. Ew, Reddit. Okay, finally caught up. Summary. For most people, their computer is just an appliance instead of a tool. But by learning how to program, you'll gain access to one of the most powerful tools in the modern world. Your laptop. And you'll have fun along the way. Programming isn't brain surgery. It's fine for amateurs to experiment and make mistakes. This book assumes you have zero programming knowledge and will teach you quite a bit, but if you have questions beyond its scope, remember that asking effective questions and knowing how to find answers are invaluable tools on your programming journey. Let us begin. Taking a quick break. Through the power of Siri. The ability to speak as if I am your friendly in-computer assistant is that your dictation catches up to you. Allow me to check a thing. Darn it. Oh. My. Oh my. That's cool. At. I've been bonked. Odd. True. I think this is enough play space for current me to get back into things and future me to edit. Buy the book if you are so inclined. I am also a poor person. Therefore, or read the other author's other Creative Commons licensed Python books. Chapter 1. Python Basics. The Python programming language has a wide range of syntactical constructions, standard library functions, and an interactive development environment features. Fortunately, you can ignore most of that. You just need to learn enough to write some handy little programs. You will, however, have to learn some basic programming concepts before you can do anything, like a wizard in training. You might think of these concepts seem arcane and tedious, but with some knowledge and practice, you'll be able to command your computer like a magic wand and perform incredible feats, like reminding myself to periodically eat food throughout the day. You know, magic. This chapter has a few examples that encourage you to type into your interactive shell, also known as the repel, read, evaluate, print loop, which lets you run or execute Python instructions one at a time and instantly shows you the results. Using the interactive shell is great for learning what basic Python instructions do, so give it a try as you follow along. You'll remember things you do much better than things you only read. Entering expressions into the interactive shell. Open your interactive shell of choice, and/or you can run the interactive shell by launching the Mu editor, which you should have downloaded when going through the setup instructions in the preface. On Windows, open the Start menu, type Mu, and open the Mu app. On Mac OS, open your application folder, double-click Mu, click the New button, and save an empty file as blank.p. When you run this blank file, clicking the Run button or F5 will open the interactive shell, which will open a new pane that opens at the bottom of the Mu editor. You should see a triple greater than prompt in the interactive shell. Enter 2 + 2 at the prompt and have Python do some simple math. The Mu editor should look like this. Okay, let's do 9 + 10. Let's change it up a bit. What's 9 + 10? 19. The silly meme is incorrect? Who would have known that 9 + 10 does not in fact equal 21? Not anyone who can do basic arithmetic. No siree. Continuing on. In Python, 2 + 2 is called an expression, which is the most basic kind of programming instructions in the language. Expressions consist of values and operators. and they can always evaluate, that is reduce, down to a single value. Excuse me. Excuse me. Ooh. That means you can use expressions anywhere in Python code that you would also use a value. For example, the previous example, 2 plus 2 is evaluated down to a single value, 4. A single value with no operators can also consider an expression, though it evaluates only to itself, as shown here. Errors are okay. Programs will crash if they contain code a computer can't understand, which will cause Python to show an error message. An error message won't break your computer, though, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. A crash just means the program stopped running unexpectedly. If you want to know more about an error, you can search the exact error message online for more information. You can also check out the resources at the following link to see a list of common Python error messages and their meanings. You can use plenty of other operators in Python expressions too. For example, Table 1.1 lists all the math operators in Python. Double asterisk, exponent, 2 double asterisk 3 evaluates to 8, percent, modulus / remainder, example 22, parentheses 8 evaluates to 6, double slash, integer division floor quotient, example 22 divided by double slash / 8 evaluates to 2, single slash, division. 22 single slash 8 evaluates to 2.75 asterisk multiplication 3.3 asterisk 5 evaluates to 15. Subtraction symbol. Subtraction. You don't need me to read this. I trust you're that smart. Addition. I don't need to read this. I trust you're that smart. Oh no, not the order of operations. You said we wouldn't need to do math. You have to install pip.meanpy in your console for that to work. I understand that you mean there's a... Wait, what are you referring to? Because I kind of zoned out into reading. Whew. Oh, thank you. I assume that this exact. I assume. Oh, it was a joke. In normal terms, I usually don't understand jokes anyway. Definitely not. I definitely don't get programming jokes. I understand them, they're funny, but I don't understand how they're funny. Continuing. The order of operations, also called precedence, of Python math operators is similar to that of mathematics. The exponent operator, evaluated source, then multiplication, the different types of division, and remainder, the different types of division. Operators are evaluated next, from right to left, and then the addition and subtraction operators are evaluated last, from right to left. You can use parentheses to override the usual precedence. If you need to white space in between the operators and values doesn't matter for Python, except for in the indentation at the beginning of a line. But a single space is convention. Enter the following expression into your interactive shell. A bunch of math operators that you know how to do. If you have passed, I believe it is 6th grade level math. I trust you all have passed 6th grade level math. If not, I assume my content is not for you. Not saying that you are incapable of enjoying and consuming my content. I'm not even sure if it counts as a programming joke. I'm only that is a large sum of time because as a neurodivergent person, it takes me a much longer time to understand a lot of things. Sometimes I can't even process a joke. I believe the elitist comment is passing 6th grade math. To reassure you, I've just passed 10th grade math. So, we're not that far away. Okay. Following, you've got enough time to look at these operations. In each case, a programmer must enter the expression, but Python does the hard part of valuing it down to single value. Python will keep evaluating the parts of the expression until it becomes a single value, as shown here. These rules for putting operators and values together to form expressions are a fundamental part of Python and the programming language. Just like grammar rules help us communicate. Here's an example. This is a grammatically correct English sentence. This grammatically is sentence, not English correct A. The second line is difficult to parse because it doesn't follow the rules of English. Similarly, if you enter a bad Python instruction, Python won't be able to understand it and will display a syntax error message as shown here. The following. I'm tired of reading numbers. You can always test to see whether an instruction works by entering it into the interactive shell. Don't worry about breaking the computer. The worst that could happen is that the Python responds with an error message. Professional software developers get error messages while they're coding all the time. Remember that expressions are just values combined with operators, and they always evaluate down to a single value. Excuse me. A data type is a category for values, and every value belongs to exactly one data type. The most common data types in Python are listed in Table 1, 2. The values, negative 2 and 30, for example, are said to be integer values. The integer values, or int, data type indicates the values are whole numbers. Numbers with a decimal point, such as 3.14, are called floating point numbers, or floats. Note that even though 42 is an integer, a value of 42.0 would be a floating point number. Python can also have text values called strings, or strs, pronounced strs. Always surround your strings with a single quote characters. such as an hello or goodbye, cruel world. So Python knows where the string begins and ends. You can even have a string with no characters in it. Double. This is called a blank string or an empty string. Strings are explained in greater detail in Chapter 4. If you ever see an error message, syntax error, EOL while scheming, string literal, you probably forgot the final single quote character at the end of the string, such as in this example. Hello world. Then the error as above. My posture has changed my voice. Therefore, I'm changing my posture back to the one that it was previously, so it is more I have never heard call string a stir before. Ooh. Well, the more you know. Oh. Meaning of an operator may change on the data types of the values next to it. For example, plus is the addition operator when it operates two integers or floating point values. However, a plus is used on two string values. It joins the strings as the string connection operator. Entering the following into your interactive shell. I'm going to use different names. Fizz plus plague. For no particular reason. Oh. I accidentally used a double quote instead. Let's try that again. Fizz plus plague. Fizz plague. The joys! The expression evaluates down to a single new string value that combines the text of the two strings. However, if you try to use the plus operator on a string and an integer value, Python will not know how to handle this, and will explain and display an error message. The error message can only that CONCATENA. Boom. We are having a tad bit of brain derp. Okay. I'm going to say the word coagulate. I understand that it might be the term for blood or something else. However, it is the first thing that my brain comes with. We can fix it in post. We can fix it in post. The error message can only coagulate string, not integer, to string, means that Python thought you were trying to coagulate an integer to the string Alice. Your code will have to explicitly convert the integer into a string, because Python cannot do this automatically. Converting data types will be explained in Dissecting Your Programming on page 13 when we talk about string, int, and float functions. The multiplication operator multiplies two integers or floating point values, but with the multiplication operator is often used on one string value and another in one integer value. It becomes a string replicator operator. Each string multiplied by a number into the interactive shell. See if section. Alice 5 times with no spaces. The correct way, because spaces are for nerds. Yeah, I said it. Spaces are for nerds. They take up an unnecessary character. Just capitalize the beginning of each word until it congeals into one big little lump that you can read as a sentence. turn sentences into singular strings of text, and then add spaces in between sentences. Yeah, I said it. Controversial opinion time. Please don't cancel me. My blatant disregard for the English language and how people are commonly seeing sentences. No, I'm being destroyed. Pardon. The expression evaluates down to a single string value that repeats the original string a number of times equal to the integer value. String replication is a useful trick, but it's not as often used as string coagulation. The multiplication operator can be used with only two numeric values, or with one string value or one integer value. Otherwise, Python will just display an error message like the following. I believe that you can read, and I'm getting tired of reading, and reading each of these individually is just taking up more time. Excuse me. Strong values and Boy. It makes sense that Python would not understand these expressions. You can't multiply two words, and it's hard to replicate an arbitrary string of fractional numbers of times. Storing values in variables. A variable is like a box in the computer's memory where you can store a single value. If you want the result of an evaluated expression later in your program, you can save it inside of a variable. Pardon? I got added. Where? I do not know. Oh. It's my partner. He's a sweetheart. Assignment statements. You store values with an assessment variable. Assignment statement. You store values in variables with an assignment statement. An assignment statement consists of a variable name and an equal sign, called the assignment operator, and the value to be stored. If you entered assignment statement spam equal 42, then a variable named spam will have the integer value 42 stored into it. Think of a variable as a labeled box with the value placed in it, such as label figure 11. Ooh. Okay. Putting the following in the interactive shell. My brain is starting to tire. However, I want to beat this in consistent chunks, and we are halfway through. Therefore, please read the following. A variable is initialized or created the first time a value is stored in it. After that, you can use an expression with other variables and values. When a variable is assigned a new value, the old value is forgotten. This is called overriding of a variable. Enter the following code into the fastest thing to override the string. Read the following. Just like the box in figure 2, in 1-2. The spam variable, in this example, stores hello until you replace the string with goodbye. Variable names. A good variable name describes the data it contains. Imagine that you moved to a new house and labeled all of your moving boxes as stuff. You'd never find anything. Most of this book's examples and Python's documentation use generic Use generic variable names like spam, eggs, and bacon, which come from the Mighty Bone Sketch spam sketch. But in your programs, a descriptive name will help make your code more readable. Though you can name your variables almost anything, Python does have some naming restrictions. Table 1.3 has some examples of readable variable names. You can name a variable anything as long as it obeys all the following 3 rules. It can only be one word with no spaces. It can only use letters, numbers, and the underscore character. It cannot begin with a number. Variable names are case sensitive, meaning spam, 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 and spam are 4 different variables. Though spam is a valid variable you can use in a program, it is a Python conversion to start your variables in a lowercase. This book uses camcase for variable names instead of underscores. That is, variables look like this instead of looking like this. Some experienced programs may point out that the official Python code style PEP8 says that underscores should be used. I unapologetically prefer camcase to the point of the foolish consistency of the Hobgoblins of Little Minds section. Foolishly consistent is the Hobgoblin of Little Minds sections of PEP8 itself. Consistency with style guide is important, but most importantly, know when to be inconsistent. Sometimes the style guide just doesn't apply. When in doubt, use your best judgment. I like this guy. You can't multiply. Hello, I don't know in reference because I haven't been checking because I've been eating. You cannot multiply 2 words. I understand that not everything can be as talented as me. Sure to party. Please show me how you would multiply a word. I will not be doing the first program on stream because we are running out of time, and by time, I mean I'm running out of patience. It's a common misconception. Okay. Your first program. While the interactive shell is good for running Python instructions one at a time, to write entire Python programs, you'll need the instructions into the file editor. The file editor is similar to text editors, like Notepad or TextMate, but it has a few features specifically for entering source code. To open a new file in Mu, click the New button on the top row. The window that appears should contain a cursor awaiting your input, but it's different than the interactive shell, which runs Python instructions as soon as you press enter. The file lets you type in as many instructions, save the file, and run the program. Here's how you can tell the difference between the two. The interactive shell will always be the one with the prompt. The file editor will not have the prompt. Make the first program, as listed here. Once you have entered the source code, save that so you don't have to retype it every time you start Mu. Click the Save button, enter Hello Pi as in the file name field, and then click Save. Save. You should save your programs every once in a while as you type them. That way, if anything goes wrong, you won't lose the code. As a shortcut, you can press Ctrl S on Windows and Linux, or idiot symbol S on Mac to save your file. Because if you're using Mac, you are probably an idiot. Hopefully I didn't say that too loud so my young brother did not hear that because our family computer is a Mac. Okay, the wrath of my parents have not come upon me. When there are no more lines of code to execute, the Python program terminates. That is, it stops running. You can also say that the Python program exits. You can close the file editor by pressing X on the top of the window. To reload a saved program, select File, Open from the menu. From the menu. Do that now. In the window that appears, choose Hello Pi. Click Open button. The Open button. Your previously saved Hello Pi program should be there. There in the file editor window. So you can use the execution of a program using the Python tool or visualization tool. At this link, you can see an execution of this particular program at this link. Click the forward button to move through each step of the program's execution. You'll be able to see the variable's values and output change. Dissecting your program. With your new program, open the file editor. Let's take a quick tour of the Python instructions it uses by looking at which code does comments. Comments. We gotta use comments, right? Comments are super important for understanding things, especially in big, large projects. I don't know, like an interactive Discord bot, of which you can play an interactive Discord bot surrounding slime. I don't know. I'm just going out on a limb here. I don't know anything. I'm sorry. This is known as snark in a very large amount. Python ignores comments, and you can use them to write notes or remind yourself what the code is trying to do. Any text or the rest of the line, followed by hash marks, is a part of the comment. Sometimes, programmers will put a hash in front of a line of code to temporarily remove it while programming. This is called commenting out code. It can be useful when you're trying to figure out why a program isn't working. You can remove the hash later when you're ready to put the line back in. Python also ignores the blank line after the comment, so you can add as many blank lines to your program as you want. This makes your code easier to read, like paragraphs in a book. We're almost at the end. The print function. The print function displays the string value inside of the parentheses on screen. The line print hello world means print out the text in the string hello world. When the Python executes this line, you say that Python is calling the print, and the string value is being passed to the function. A value that is passed to a function call is an argument. Notice that the quotes are not printed on the screen. They just mark where string begins and ends. They are not a part of the string value. Note, you can also use this function to put a blank line on the screen. Just call print with nothing in between the parentheses. When you write a function name, opening and closing the parentheses at the end identifies it as the name of the function. This is why this book you'll see print rather than print. Chapter 3 describes functions in more detail. The input function. The input function waits for the user to type some text on the keyboard and press enter. The function call evaluates a string to the user's text. A line of code assesses the myName variable whose string value. You can think of the input function as an expression that evaluates to whenever a string string that is user typed in. If the user entered ow, then the expression would evaluate to my name equal ow. If you call input and see an error message like name error, name ow not defined, the problem is that you're running the code in Python 2 instead of Python 3. Really simple, really. You haven't followed the earlier steps and some mistake happened. Taking a breathing break because I clicked on the wrong tab. Printing the user's name. To follow, the following call to print actually contains the expression, "It is good to meet you," plus my name in between the parentheses. Remember that the expressions can always evaluate to a single value. If ow is the value stored in my name on line 3, then the expression evaluates to "It's good to meet you, ow." This single string of value is passed to print, which prints it on the screen. The Len function. You can pass the Len function a string value, or a variable containing a string, and the function evaluates to an integer value of the number of characters in that string. The following examples. Pardon? Just like those examples, Len my name evaluates into an integer, then passed to print to be displayed on the screen. The print function allows you to pass it either integer values or string values, but notice the error that shows up when you type the following into the print shell. Print I am plus 20 plus 9 years old. Following error. The print function isn't causing that error. Rather, it's the expression that you try to pass to print. You get the same error message if you try the explanation in the interactive shell on its own. Beep, 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 beep. Python gives an error because the plus operator can only be used to add two integers together, or concatenate. Continent? It looks like it sounds like continent. Gosh darn pronunciation. Coagulate. We're sticking with coagulate. Coagulate two strings. You cannot add an integer to a string because this is ungrammatical in Python. You can fix it by using a string version of the integer instead, as explained in the next section. The string, integer, and float functions. If you want to coagulate an integer such as 29 into a string to pass through print, you'll need to get the value 29, which is in string form of 29. The string function can be passed on the integer value, and it'll be the string function can be passed an integer value and will evaluate into a string value of the integer as follows. Because string 29 evaluates to 29, the expression I am 29 evaluates to I am 29 years old, which in turn evaluates to I am 29 years old. Ooh. The value is passed through the print function. The string, int, and float functions will evaluate to string, integer, and floating forms of the value. Values you try to pass respectively. Try converting some values into the thing. As such, beep beep. The previous examples call the string, int, and float functions and pass them values of other data types to obtain string, integer, or floating point of those values. The string value is handy when you have an integer or a float that you want to consolidate into a string. Coagulate, consolidate, whatever. The int value is also helpful if you have a number of string value that you want to use in some mathematics. For example, the input function always returns a string, even if the user enters a number. Enter the following and enter 101, and then it waits for your text. The value in span isn't the integer 101, but the string 101. If you want to use math using the integer value, if you want to do math using a value in spam, use the int function to get the integer from spam and then store this as a new value in spam. My brain is starting to get agitated at the fact that I am reading. Gosh diddly darn. Pew, 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 pew. Excuse me? You should now be able to treat the spam variable as an integer instead of a string. Note, if you pass a variable value through int that cannot be evaluated as an integer, it will display an error message. An int function is also useful if you need to round a floating point number down. You need the int and string functions of the last 3 lines of your program to get a value of the appropriate data back to the code. Text and rel. Text and number equivalence. Although a string number value is considered a completely different value from an integer or floating point function, an integer can be equal to a floating point. Python makes this distinction because strings are text while integers and floats are both numbers. The myAge variable contains the value returned from input because the input function always returns a string. Even if the user typed in a number, you can use the int myAge code to retrieve an integer of the string myAge. This integer value is then added to 1 in the expression int myAge plus 1. The result of this addition is passed through the string function. String int myAge plus 1. The string value returned is then consolidated, with the strings you will be and in a year to evaluate the one large string value. This large string is finally passed through print to be displayed on the screen. Let's say that the user inputs 4 for myAge. The string 4 can be converted to an integer, so you can add onto it. The result is 5. The string function converts the result back into a string, so you can consolidate it with the first string in a year to create the final message. The evaluation steps will be something as follows. Summary. You can compute expressions with a calculator or enter a string of concatenations with a word processor. You can do string replication easily by copying and pasting text. But expressions and other component values, operators, values, pull functions calls are the basic building blocks that make programs. Once you know how to handle these elements, you will be able to instruct Python to operate on large amounts of data for you. It's good for you to remember the different types of operator. The following for math and the following for string operations. And the 3 data types: integer, floating, point numbers, and strings, introduced in this chapter. I introduced a few functions as well. The print and input functions handle simple text output to the screen and input from the keyboard. The Len function takes a string, evaluates it to an int of the number of characters into the string. The string, int, and float functions evaluate the string, integer, or floating point number of the value they are passed. In the next chapter, you'll learn how to tell Python to make intelligent decisions about what code to run, what code to skip, and what code to repeat based off the value it has. This is known as flow control, and allows you to write programs that make intelligent decisions. Practice questions are the following. Extra credit. Please feel free to search this on your own. And that is the end of my reading. I'm going to call the stream in a little bit because that sure was something. Acting normal is extremely difficult. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the stream, and this will be available soon in the VOD variant, especially quickly, but I will try to edit this as quickly as possible to cut it up into bits and add back bits that are missing. Hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and good day.